I'm Paul Comfort, and this is Transit Unplugged. On today's episode, I'm excited to have on as our guest Stephen Gardner, the CEO of Amtrak. This is part of a regular program we're doing now where we're swapping podcasts with other podcasts that are kind of in our genre or neighborhood, as they call it. And this is one that was recorded for APTA, the American Public Transportation Association. They recorded Stephen Gardner at the APTA conference this last year. I've been wanting to get him on the show for a while, so it's great to have him on one way or the other. I think you'll really enjoy this episode, an in-depth look at what's happening with our national railroad of Amtrak here in the United States. Happy to have my buddy Art Guzzetti, who is Vice President of Policy at APTA, conduct the interview. We're also doing some surveys online. If you are listening to Transit Unplugged on Spotify, take a look at some of the polls we're putting up there. We also do some polling now and then on our LinkedIn site. Take a look at those, and if you get a chance, tell us what you think. We're always looking for listener input as to the direction the program goes. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Stephen Gardner, CEO of Amtrak, courtesy of APTA.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of The Transit Authority. We are recording live on the trade show floor from APTA EXPO in Orlando, Florida. Extremely excited today to be talking with a great audience and a great friend, Amtrak CEO, Stephen Gardner. I'm Art Guzzetti, APTA Vice President for Policy and Mobility at the American Public Transportation Association. Stephen, thank you for joining us for this very special episode of the Transit Authority.
Hi, Art. Thanks for having me.
Stephen, it's great to be here with you today. This morning, as part of APTA's Transform conference, we celebrated former Congressman Bob Clement. His career, his commitment to the expanding people's transportation options through investments in transit and passenger rail. You got your start in Congressman's office. Then he was ranking member of the House Railroad Subcommittee. Can you tell us a little about your professional journey, how that led you to leading Amtrak, starting with an intern in the House of Representatives and growing all the way to that position? Tell us about your start with Congressman Clement.
Well, thanks, Art. It's a pleasure to be with you. And actually, I am incredibly lucky to have benefited from two different internships and that helped me achieve the professional development I've been able to in my career. I've been so lucky to do that. I started first as an Amtrak intern, in fact, in Washington, and working in the transportation department, and used that experience to then get more involved in railroading generally, and worked on the freight side of the business, and then had a chance to come to Washington. I'm a DC kid. It's where I'm born and raised in the DC area, and I think one of the things that is special about growing up in that area is that, you know, it's a company town. Everyone's in government, and it seems accessible to you because everyone's parents, their, you know, brothers, sisters, everyone works for the government in some way. So it seemed totally feasible to me that if I wanted to be part of making rail a more vibrant and important part of mobility in the United States, and I knew the federal government had a lot of role to play in that one could go up and just go be part of that conversation. I think quite naive in a certain sense, but it turned out to be true in part because I was able to get an internship with the T&I, which is the Transportation Infrastructure Committee in the House of Representatives, with their railroad subcommittee staff. And as you said, the ranking member of that subcommittee was a guy named Bob Clement from Tennessee. And it just happened that he was deeply interested in not only railroads, but particularly Amtrak and passenger trains. And he had a long desire to return service to his hometown of Nashville and to restart an Amtrak service called the Floridian that had been discontinued, much to his and many Tennesseans' regret. So I was this young intern. I had worked on the railroad in a variety of operating positions, had come to be an intern, and my internship period of the summer was coming up, and I needed a job, and I was very lucky to have his support and interest, to have somebody who cared about railroads come work on his staff, and became his transportation legislative aide. And from there, had a great opportunity to work in the Senate and focused really on railroad and transportation and surface transportation issues. So I owe a lot to the congressman for giving a young kid interested in trains a shot, and I'm always really grateful that he had such strong leadership both for intercity passenger rail but transit generally, and saw a future for Nashville that I think probably many people couldn't see at the time that he was in Congress, and worked really hard through those early transportation bills, as you remember, T21 and the successors, and ICE-T before that, to put in place some of the opportunities we have today.
Well, I was happy to know you back then, Stephen, at the beginning, and certainly we were very proud to honor Congressman Clement today for his service. We're here in the Expo Hall at APTA. We gather at this critical time with so many partners from the business sector. Can you outline the various ways Amtrak looks to the supply sector for help? What are some of the upcoming opportunities that they might be looking for in the next few months? And what are some of the contracts that you have been awarded, that have already been awarded, that are in progress today and bearing fruit?
Yeah. Well, Art, it's really an exciting time for Amtrak. It's a new era of intercity passenger rail investment. We talk about this at the company all the time, that we're the luckiest generation of Amtrak employees, except maybe that very first group who got to stand up the enterprise. But to put in context the opportunity between the Department of Transportation and Amtrak, there's about $60 billion in federal investment available. That's the equivalent, it's available over the next 5 years. That's the equivalent amount of money that's essentially been invested in passenger rail for the entire 50 years preceding us. So 50 years worth of previous investment now available to us in 5. And it's really a chance to reinvigorate a whole industry. And as part of that, it's not just about Amtrak, the carrier, it's about the entire ecosystem. And all of the suppliers, vendors, innovators, employees, communities that are re-engaging in passenger rail and thinking about how to move forward. So we're working on an incredibly ambitious capital program. We just finished our fiscal year. We spent about $3 billion in capital, which is essentially a 100% increase from about 4 years ago. So a huge increase. In FY24, the fiscal year we just started, our capital budget is about $5 billion. So to do all that requires a whole new workforce. We've hired about 8,000 people in the last 2 years, Art, an incredible increase, and a new generation of railroad workers, and then an entirely expanded and new vendor and supplier base. So we have about $15 billion in contracts to let over the next 12 and a half, 13 months. And we're working hard to get the community to understand our pathway forward. And for the first time, I think what's really important for Amtrak, which is, we've been in a unique position, which is an entity that's funded on an annual basis, even though we have this big, huge capital program that we need to develop. For the first time, the IIJA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, gives us 5 years of guaranteed funding, more or less, and that's allowing us to go out to market for these multi-billion-dollar contracts. Right now, we just awarded a CMAR, Constructor Manager at Risk, contract for our new Frederick Douglass Tunnel in Baltimore, a $6 billion huge program there. We have a number of exciting procurements coming out. Everyone should go check out the Amtrak procurement portal. It's got the whole list there. We got about 10 opportunities currently. And we're really engaged in also diversifying our supplier base, a whole new supplier diversity effort at the company. And we're bringing lots of folks into the market that have never really seen the opportunity before because we haven't built at this level. But Amtrak's now a major construction company in addition to a railroad, and we need partners all over America to help us implement the vision.
Just to pick up on what you just said, Stephen, and to talk to all the suppliers and business community here today, how would you describe, is that a market signal? In the past, maybe the signal wasn't as strong as it is now. You now know that there's investment to be made this year and there's investment to come after that. How can the business community prepare and anticipate that kind of ongoing market?
Yeah, I think it is a strong signal. And I think if you just step back and think about it, Amtrak and my predecessors we were always in a big bind about how to take care of some of the big assets, whether it be fleet or stations or infrastructure, without knowing whether we could sort of write the check at the time the dollars were due, right? We could start a procurement, we could order some equipment, but in 5 years when we had to pay the bill, would the money be there? We didn't have any certainty there. And so it was a huge risk for the company to engage in that kind of, let's call it speculative, but important planning. What's really changed now is we have confidence about our ability to write the check. And that means we can really bring forward projects we've been building in the planning pipeline for decades and now move into construction. And I think our partners in the vendor community, suppliers, contractors, they can feel confident that this is a new era of opportunity. Amtrak's really rebuilding our capability to partner with them so we can be a good counterparty and so that people are attracted to our jobs. Because we know there's a lot of competition for big infrastructure out there, not just in the rail and transit space, but across highways and aviation and energy, water. So we need to be good, attractive owners to work with, and we're building up that capability. But I think the market here is hopefully just getting started. Our goal is to find great partners, deliver as promised for the public, and that means this initial investment is in fact just the down payment on the billions of investments that we see necessary to deliver a 21st century rail network and to serve more America, which is really top on our list, since we think passenger trains are key to the future of the country.
Stephen, question. Why is travel by intercity passenger rail so much more prevalent in Europe and Asia? How can the U.S. travel options be made more attractive? We were together recently at the World Congress on High-Speed Rail in Morocco. What can we learn from the international community? What can we do to bring our standards up to theirs?
Well, I think we've started with what I just described, which is a commitment of investment for a period more than a year. And if you look at rail systems across the globe, they all take a long-term, policy-centered, sustained investment approach to deliver enhanced networks. And that's what we've missed. I mean, in Europe, from 2020 to 2000, so about 20 years, the investment in rail was $1 trillion, or $1 trillion, right? So the question is, why do we have the system we have? Because we've only invested for the system that we have, right? We get what we pay for. If we want a better system that serves more of America and that offers more frequencies and better trip times, more reliability, we need to invest. And we've started to do that here with this bill. And our key now is to turn that opportunity into results and demonstrate that this is a path that we should take as a nation and that it was a wise initial investment. But I think the other key that is important to remember is the United States has a huge rail system. We have the largest rail network of any nation on earth. So we have railroads, and we have rights of way here. The question is, how do we update them and modernize them for passenger service and freight? Because we need both. We need rail to do more in both sectors across the nation. And it's about finding that right design and right planning approach. That's really different than the rest of the world, because mostly everywhere else, the infrastructure is publicly owned. And this question of prioritizing the infrastructure's use for mobility, for people and goods, is something that the public decides through its planning regime, as opposed to our system, where it's a partnership and it involves collaboration, and we're invested in making that collaboration work.
Stephen, Amtrak recently received a number of grants through FRA's Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Program, a program we know as CRISI. Can you describe the system improvements those funds are going to bring about on Amtrak?
Yeah, we're really excited about these grants, and I'd say they're the first sort of big set of announcements that start what I hope is a whole season of big announcements to come as the DOT works through some other grant programs that hopefully will be announced here in the next couple of weeks or months. The big exciting project that I think tops the list. Amtrak was successful in about $200 million of investment from the program. We really thank the leadership of the secretary and the administrator, Meet Bose. But the one that tops the list is our Gulf Coast service. This is a partnership between us and the freight railroads who own the infrastructure, between Mobile and New Orleans, to bring service back to the Gulf Coast. This is a service that we lost back in Katrina days, and it's really exciting and represents really the first new service in the South, which is a really important market for us. When you look at where Amtrak has service and where population has grown since we were founded in 1971, I think the Southeast is the part of the country we serve the least well. We have the least amount of service, and you've seen the most population growth, and there are great corridors all over the South and Southeast, and so I'm really excited about this Mobile service, which will start sometime next year. And the Hussey grant gives us the dollars to make a series of improvements along the railroad and get that service going together with the states and the Southern Rail Commission. Additionally, we had some great safety investments both on that corridor and then some additional fencing along the Northeast corridor. We partnered and supported Massachusetts for some infrastructure improvements to begin new service between Boston and Springfield and connecting to the South. So a lot of great opportunity, but I think just a drop in the bucket for all the things that we are excited to do here in the next couple of years.
We're talking today from Orlando, Florida, where just in the last few weeks, the Brightline opened service here to Orlando. Meanwhile, other parts of the country, Nevada, California, Brightline West is making progress on service linking Los Angeles to Las Vegas. And California High-Speed Rail Authority makes progress on a system-wide high-speed rail system. What is Amtrak's role and position in the future of high-speed rail in the United States? Those being high-speed systems, Amtrak being more of a incremental type of system. Are those separate, or come together? What's high-speed rail future for Amtrak?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. Well, first, congratulations to Brightline and Wes Edens and Mike Reiniger for delivering on their vision of connecting Orlando here. And we're in general really excited about all of these investment and all the investment and all the interest in expanding modern passenger rail service, whether that be high speed or high quality conventional service. We think anybody who's interested in the mode is, our friend, basically, because we think that the overall mission here is to create more value and more mobility opportunities using passenger rail across the country. So we're looking always at partnerships and opportunities to be using the kind of capacity and capabilities we have at Amtrak to support growth in passenger rail service. Our high-speed interests have been sustained for a long time at Amtrak. Of course, a lot of focus has been on getting those speeds on the Northeast Corridor up. We'll be introducing 160-mile-an-hour service there soon. But I think the big issue has been the lack of investment for true high speed. And we believe that the work now with these investments that are made possible by the infrastructure bill for planning and development can put us in position to advance future high-speed networks. So we're really interested. We've hired a guy named Andy Byford, came to us from his time in the UK and New York MTA in Toronto. He's a great leader in our industry to focus on our high-speed program and portfolio at Amtrak. And really we see this as an opportunity to bring together and really facilitate or support regions that see high speed in their future. So, of course, California is doing great work to advance their system, interested in the Brightline West work, looking at partnering where we can support up in the Cascadia and the Pacific Northwest. But we see high speed as an integral part of the future network, one that sits on the base of a big conventional network. That's how it works everywhere in the world. You don't have just high speed alone. You have high speed supported by regional and intercity service and transit. That's what makes the whole system work. But we see a bright future, and I think now's the time to make these initial investments and build up the momentum so the next infrastructure bill, which is already going to be upon us in 2027, not far, we're ready to make the case for the kind of investments we need to really launch a world-class system.
We're getting there one step at a time, that's for sure, Stephen. And can you explain to listeners how Amtrak works with states to provide corridor service? What opportunities are there to grow new and improved passenger rail, given the funds available through IIJA Act, which creates opportunities for passenger rail, working with states?
Yeah. Well, states are really the heart and soul of Amtrak's national network. We have this great long-distance network that sort of serves as the foundation, I'll say, for all of our service. But on top of that, our state corridors are really the big driver of ridership. They produce about 50% of all of Amtrak's riders. And let me say, it's really great to see our ridership come back. Last 3 months, we've been about 120% of our pre-pandemic levels on the Northeast Corridor and about 110% of our pre-pandemic levels on the national system. So we're fully recovered and, in fact, ahead of where we were starting from the pandemic. And a lot of that comes from our partnership with states. The way that works is the federal government has established essentially a cooperative between us and states where we, Amtrak, bring access rights to the railroads, equipment, all the systems, our skilled craftspeople and technology, and partner with local sponsors at the state level to operate train service less than 750 miles. So these are typically corridors connecting a couple of major cities, might be intrastate, might be interstate, might involve a couple of different state partners, and we enter into annual contracts. And we have a commission basically that has governance around this whole structure and a lot of leadership from the DOT and FRA. The infrastructure bill provides some really great opportunities to expand that service. One, by creating a new corridor development program, identification development program led by the FRA, and we were really happy to, I think, try and get a clear message to Congress that there's a lot of opportunity to expand the network. Well, our goal is to double our ridership size by 2040, so that's about 66 million riders. And the only way we do that is by serving more communities with new service, and to do that in partnership with our state colleagues. So this corridor ID program came out of the bill, and it's a way for these corridors to get into a pipeline of development, kind of like the FTA's CIG program, right? Where there's a staged program and an opportunity, folks can get into the pipeline and know that at the end they have an opportunity to see capital investment. Additionally, a new lower barrier to the operating costs of new service through the Restoration Enhancement Program. Some of the big things that are going to come out of all this are this service to the Gulf Coast I mentioned, new service coming to the Twin Cities, an extension of our Hiawatha service there next year, 2 new frequencies coming back, 5 and 6 on the Cascades. So a couple of near-term routes, and then a lot of things as the corridor ID program develops here that are going to be put in motion that'll deliver service in the near term, say 3 to 5 years. And we're partnering with states all over America to do that, and with other partners as well, because we want to, again, add value where we can, which doesn't mean we have to do everything. We try and find the spot that we can make a difference in and support our partners.
A robust pipeline of project, that's a good signal for the business community and a good signal to the public as well. In addition to these growing corridors, the FRA is undergoing a study of long-distance network. What are you looking for out of that, Stephen, in terms of the future long-distance network that you operate?
Well, we're really excited about the long-distance network. First, Congress made a very strong commitment to preserving the current network in this bill, and really importantly, to refleeting the network as it exists today. So we have the backbone of that fleet is basically late 1970s through the 80s, and we are about to undertake the largest rolling stock procurement in America since about 1947 in the New York Central. So we're looking to have an incredible opportunity for car builders to be part of creating a new generation of long distance equipment that can serve today's 15 routes. And this study, as you mentioned, that the FRA is leading, is looking forward past the act of sort of updating what we have and thinking about what else could we add to that system. And we're really excited about those opportunities. And it's going to take Congress of course, following through with investment to make that happen, because it certainly would take investment. But we think the long distance network today has been through COVID and post, it's been really a strong performer, and one that I think has shown its value. In the near term, what we were interested in, a couple of projects that I think are pretty compelling, which is to get those 3-day-a-week trains. We have 2 of them up to 7 days a week, so we have daily service on some of the routes, and also some places where, for instance, we don't serve today Phoenix, which is a huge omission, up there with places like Nashville, where we just are absent in the market, and we'd like to be able to run our Sunset service via Phoenix, and that involves restoring some track there. So we're looking at incremental improvements while this study's going on, and then Congress has the chance to act and put in motion the kind of future growth that's necessary on the fleet side to see expansion along distance, and look at the network and see where we can add more value connecting our regions.
Well, as you plan to develop that national network, you also have the very heavily traveled Northeast Corridor, where you've worked with states for quite a few years to plan improvements to America's highest traffic growth corridor. What improvements can riders expect to see in the coming years, and what kind of regional impact will a healthy Northeast Corridor make to America?
Art, it's a great question. I mean, the Northeast Corridor is the main line of passenger railroading in North America. It's there's no corridor quite like it in terms of density. Right now, it's about 2,000 trains a day on this railroad between Amtrak commuter railroads and our freight colleagues. So it's really a special piece of infrastructure connecting this sort of pearl of cities up the coast. But it is in need of huge investments to recapitalize its assets, most of which are 100 or 100 plus years old. And that's what we're really focused on right now. So in a sense, the first thing people are going to see is a lot of construction. Usually that's not necessarily a great thing. We all know from sort of summer traffic, when people have cones out on the highways, et cetera. But we're working really hard to make sure that as we rebuild the railroad, we also are improving service. That's going to show up as new equipment and our new Acellas, which we hope to launch next year, and replacing our AM fleet, which is the regional equipment, with new state-of-the-art train sets in about 2026. So there'll be new trains coming. In the meantime, we're getting a ton of work done, increasing the reliability, upgrading our assets, smoothing out the ride, and doing the kind of things that are basically bread and butter to maintaining a reliable railroad, but that Amtrak's not been able to afford to do in decades past. So we're digging out of a hole, frankly, Art, that was made from decades of underinvestment. Got a lot of work to do there, but as we do that, every one of these steps, for instance, this new tunnel we're building in Baltimore, that's going to allow us to have a 100-mile-an-hour alignment into the city as opposed to 30-mile-an-hour alignment. And it's going to not only benefit Amtrak by reducing trip time and creating more reliability, it's going to help our partner MARC, the MTA commuter service, achieve basically a half-hour trip time between Baltimore and Washington, which is a game changer for sort of bringing the metropolitan regions together. So a lot of opportunity. It's going to come kind of incrementally, piece by piece. So we ask for people's patience, and there's going to be changes in service levels and other things to accommodate all this work. But in the end, we're going to end up with a much higher capacity, much more reliable asset that's going to be hugely capacitizing to growth and mobility in the corridor. Because we all know the highway system is not going to grow, and it can't keep up. And we have a climate crisis that demands that we come up with alternative ways to address mobility, and rail in the Northeast, where we already rely on a big portfolio of renewables, is the way for us to get carbon-free and really highly capacitized mobility.
If there's anything that is a project of national significance, I would say it's the Northeast Corridor. It's the foundation of so much economic activity that benefits everybody. So keep doing good things on that, Stephen. But as we talk about the Northeast Corridor, I also want to make sure we also talk about rural America. And Amtrak has a critical role, in rural America. So I just asked to describe the importance of Amtrak to rural America.
Well, absolutely right, Art. I mean, our our business is really connecting communities to each other, and that means not only big cities to big cities, but to all of the intermediate towns and communities that need access to those metropolitan regions. And one of the amazing things that's happened during sort of post-pandemic period is all the growth in leisure demand, and it's one of the things that's really benefiting Amtrak is people want to get out and experience and explore America, and the train allows you to get to sort of the heart of small towns all over the country, and also to really engage in the pageantry and sort of grandeur of our nation and our geography. Whether it's the Empire Builder, which is a route that many people love and delivers you to Glacier National Park's front door, or the Coast Starlight, or the Zephyr. These are places that take, I think, people from all over the world to some of the really special parts of our nation. Some of the less discussed and sort of maybe heralded, but just as important, are the many communities we serve on our long-distance networks, particularly in the South and in the Midwest. Places where without Amtrak, there's no public transportation. There's no opportunity for people to travel unless they have our service, because bus service is retrenched. Regional airline service has dramatically retrenched since the pandemic, and that was already a trend well underway. So many places, we're the only service. I just took a Capital Limited to the Texas Eagle to the Sunset, and had a great trip all across the country. And you get up. I make sure to get up at every station. I get up at 3 a.m., see who's getting on the train. It's incredible. Some of the places I go, and there's 30 people at 3 a.m. waiting for a train in a place like Little Rock, which is hardly rural. It's a major city, but it's the only transportation option available, and to connect from Little Rock to some of the smaller communities up and down the line. And if you think that's the demand at 3 a.m., what could we do if we served these communities at the right time of day, with the right frequency, with reliable service? So I think there's just huge amounts of demand and opportunity, and finally the dollars are coming to allow us to start to build, I think, the network that's worthy of it.
Vital. Those are vital mobility connections, and I know you had a lot of support from those states, and we're going to keep pushing. Stephen, as I look around, I see students that are here. So would you have a message for students? You started young with a love of railroading and have continued that to have a wonderful career, contributing to our communities, contributing to our nation. What message might you have to our students? Would a career in railroading be an attractive option for them to pursue? Well,
let me just say, I think career in railroading is great. I've been so lucky to, and let me also just say, I think, for a long time our industry was in retrenchment, right? I remember when I first arrived at Amtrak, if we were in a room and there were 100 people in the room, I asked how long people had been there. Most of the hands would say 30 to 35 years. Some people worked at the company for 40 years, and the people who had been in the company for less than 10 were maybe 10%. And it was an era where most of the folks who worked in our business were holding on. They were sort of preserving a network through difficult and lean times. And they did their job. They did a great job keeping together a system sort of with baling wire and duct tape, and got us to a point now where we get to reinvent that system and reinvigorate it. And so we're looking high and low everywhere we can for people who share that passion and mission for enhancing transportation. And the opportunity has never been greater. As I said, we've hired 4,500 people this year. We're looking for sort of all types and all roles all across America. And so for folks in school who are thinking about transportation, I can't say enough about the unique role that I think Amtrak can offer because of our geographic coverage and the many different types of activities we have at the company. If you think about it, we're a hotel, a bus operator, a power company, a transmission company, a construction company, a restaurant, a e-commerce company, a sales and distribution and marketing enterprise. All these different functions have to be housed in a railroad. So there's so much opportunity for people to get involved in different things. And I think, my view, even though I'm a total train nerd, variety within the universe of railroading, I think, is what's really fun.
You could have no more rewarding rewarding career than what you just described. That's awesome. Just a couple more questions, Stephen. We were together just an hour or two ago in a session titled "Making the Connection: The Intersection of Cities, Transit, and Passenger Rail." Any message you might want to share from those listening to the podcast? Any theme that came out of that you found noteworthy?
Well, I would just I would say that one of the things that's unique in our role at Amtrak, right? Because we're created by the public sector with a public mission. We do that with commercial and sort of private sector DNA as a corporation, but we accomplish the things we do through partnership. We're never a unitary actor. We never, Amtrak, much to the frustration of many, sometimes us as well. We'd love to be able to just say, we're going to run trains there tomorrow, or that's where we're going to do, and I'm going to grab some equipment from someplace, I'm going to start running trains. It doesn't work that way. We do everything we do through partnership with states, with communities, with our federal government owners, with Congress. And it's through that collaboration that we get stuff done. So it takes a certain perseverance in a sort of evangelical spirit in a way to get everyone connected and see the opportunity and try to make things happen. And, at Amtrak, we want to be the sort of active ingredient in getting stuff done. And that means finding partnerships everywhere we can at every level to try and enhance mobility. And I think that's one of the things that came out of the conversation we had today with mayors and community leaders at the local level. How do we build a better partnership and more structure and support for connecting the different levels of government, private sector, enterprises like Amtrak, our freight colleagues, to enhance mobility? Because we all know it's all in our collective interest. I mean, there's a sort of, it can't be any more obvious that we all benefit tremendously when we have an efficient system that provides opportunity for people. And we sometimes let the divisions get in the way. And with all this new investment, the time is now for us to achieve real results and sort of prove to the public that given the shot, we can get stuff done that's meaningful and creates value. So, but we're only going to do that by all working together.
It was a wonderful conversation, Stephen, you had with mayors. And those who weren't able to attend, you can watch the recording of it. So please look for that on the APTA website. And well, Stephen, we're about at time here. So I want to ask if there are any concluding thoughts that you might want to squeeze in. What can APTA do and other advocates gathered around us do to move the long-awaited passenger rail agenda forward?
Well, thanks, Art. First, just let me thank you for doing this and having me on. I think APTA is an incredibly important organization that brings focus to, I think a huge part of mobility that often is sort of below a lot of folks' radar, right? And you bring focus and attention both to people who can find an incredibly meaningful career, for industry and private sector who are looking for new opportunities to bring innovation and develop capacity, and alert our political leaders, both at the federal level and state and local level, how important and vital the role of mobility is and the role that public transit plays. So I think I want to recognize and applaud that. I think that we are in this period of time where there's a lot of opportunity and investment happening, but already I'm thinking about 2027. It's not far. The debate, as you know, will begin certainly in 2026, if not well before, in 2025, about the next set of investments necessary to build on this initial investment. And so we need to be thinking about how we have this investment serve as the down payment for what really I think is a 20-year program of investment across our infrastructure to recover the lost decades and put our whole network, sort of regardless of mode, into the 21st century. And so we need to start celebrating the successes that we're having now and start to create the vision for how this continues and is worthy of further support when the time comes.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and thank you to our live audience and to our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Transit Authority, APTA's official podcast. We thanks again to Stephen Gardner for taking time to join us. Everyone, be sure to subscribe to our podcast at podcast.apta.com or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Thanks again.
Hi, this is Chris Hussey, editor of the Transit Unplugged podcast. Thanks for listening to this special episode of Transit Unplugged from our friends at the Transit Authority at APTA with Art Guzzetti and Stephen Gardner. Now, coming up next week is the first of 2 episodes that come to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the newly rebranded MetroLink Tulsa. First up, we have the head of MetroLink Tulsa, Scott Marr, talking about his system and his plans for a BRT line to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Route 66. If you have a question, comment, or would like to be a guest on the show, email us at info@transitunplugged.com. TransitUnplugged.com is also where you can read our blog and sign up for our newsletter, and not to mention catch up on any past episodes you might have missed. Transit Unplugged is brought to you by Modaxo. At Modaxo, we're passionate about moving the world's people, and at Transit Unplugged, we're passionate about telling those stories. So until next week, ride safe and ride happy.